All right, I'm going to start on page 109. This is probably some things you've heard before, but this is a really good part. Right away at the D'Angelos, I sensed something wasn't right. As I walked down the hill to the boathouse, I heard a noise, like a door closing, and froze mid-step. My eyes darted around. I didn't see anyone, but I noticed that the garbage bag I had filled with brush and trash had been spilled out. Forcing my feet to move, I made my way toward the boathouse and saw that the trash was strewn everywhere, like it had been kicked around, and that the rake I had dropped when I found the drill now leaned up against the building. Cautiously, I opened the door to the boathouse. "Who's here?" I called in. At first, silence, but then a soft scraping noise confirmed my suspicion, and Digger slowly stood up from where he'd been crouched behind a grain barrel in the corner. Because of the way the light came through the boathouse, he was a silhouette, but I knew the compact, lean body and the way he held his muscular shoulders back. "What are you doing here?" I demanded. "You know darn well what I'm doing here, Brady." "You're looking for the drill," I said. Digger stepped around the barrel. "And if you know what's good for you, you'll give it to me." "It's not here." "Well then, if you picked it up, it's got your fingerprints on it too, doesn't it?" I scowled. "I had my work gloves on," I said. But the truth is that I had taken my gloves off before I picked up the drill. It never occurred to me then that I might be handling evidence. Digger's voice started to sound panicky. "I'm telling you, Brady, if you don't get rid of that drill and keep your mouth shut, you'll be in a lot of trouble." "You did do it, didn't you? You put holes in Mr. D'Angelo's kayak." Digger didn't say anything, but I took the silence to mean yes. "You and JT?" I pressed. Digger's mouth became a tight, straight line. "You couldn't never prove it." An image of the red kayak lying on the bottom of the river flashed through my mind. "Why?" I threw up my hands. "Why'd you guys do it?" Digger looked away for a second, and when he looked back at me, his voice had lost its angry timbre. "You remember that day we went over there on your boat, Brady? The day we had us a smoke?" I settled my hands back down on my hips, recalling an afternoon in early April when Digger said he had something to show us, and the something turned out to be a cigarette. "Yeah," I said, frowning. "I remember." "Well, think back on it," Digger told me. So I did. I thought back to how we had gone there, to the D'Angelo's beach, because it was a favorite spot of ours. We hadn't been worried about the new property owners seeing us because their new house was out of sight, up the hill beyond their new 3-car garage. Nearby, Mr. D'Angelo's new red kayak rested on 2 wooden sawhorses. We'd already seen the kayak. We 3 just happened to be at the 7-Eleven a few weeks previous when Mr. D'Angelo pulled into the parking lot, the new kayak strapped to the top of his silver Porsche. It was quite a sight because the kayak was longer than the car. Agape, we'd stood on the sidewalk with our sodas while he waved and dashed into the store. "Probably needs to run in and buy a Rolex," JT had joked. "Yeah, or a diamond stud to put where the sun don't shine," Digger had muttered. The kayak rested on the sawhorses by the D'Angelo's dock the day Digger tried to get us to smoke. "Come on, what are you afraid of?" Digger had goaded me, shoving the cigarette in my face. "I had an uncle who died from lung cancer," I told him. Carl's dad, in fact. I didn't want anything whatsoever to do with smoking. Digger had cupped his hands around the cigarette to relight it after the wind put it out. Then he blew smoke out the side of his mouth like an old pro and offered it to me again. "One puff ain't gonna turn you into an addict." I had to screw up my face to make the point. They made me gag. So Digger had turned to JT, thrusting it at him. "For crying out loud, you weakling, it's not like you're gonna keel over and die right here on the spot." Digger had a way of pushing JT around, and darned if JT didn't accept that cigarette and take a quick puff and hand it back. It was at that moment that Mr. D'Angelo had shown up with a golf club in his hand. Scared the you-know-what out of us. He must have been behind the house practicing his swing or something and heard us talking. "What are you guys doing?" he'd asked. JT was coughing, but we both stepped away from Digger, who brought the cigarette down quickly and pulled his incriminating hand behind his back. "I see," Mr. D'Angelo had said. "Look, it's none of my business if you guys are smoking, but it is my business when you're on my property. You guys need to leave. I catch you here again, I'm calling your parents." I had hung my head. I was so ashamed. It was only a couple weeks before that I'd babysat for Ben all afternoon. That's it. Out of here, he had ordered us. I'm sorry, sir. I had tried to apologize. We didn't mean anything. Mr. D'Angelo had spun away. He didn't even wait to make sure we were gone. We did leave, though, got right in my boat and went home. I was so ticked off at Digger I could barely stand to look at him. When we got back to the dock at my house, Digger was itchy for revenge. Let's do something to get back at that creep. Except he didn't say creep. I had waved a hand at him. I got homework. I'm going in. You then, Digger had ordered JT. You owe me one for the other day when Curtis was hitting on you. Curtis was an incredible bully at school. They had set off down our driveway arguing while I went inside. I had never looked back at them. It had never, ever occurred to me that they didn't blow off their steam and go home that day. That instead, they went down to my dad's workshop, stole the drill and the glue, and sneaked back to the D'Angelo's beach. I squeezed my eyes shut recalling these events. When I opened them again, I looked sadly at Digger. You did it because Mr. D'Angelo kicked us off his property? He didn't need to talk to us the way he did, Digger argued. But you know damn well, Brady, it goes a lot deeper than that. I hate D'Angelo. How the hell did I know his wife was going to take the kid out for a spin in that kayak? I shook my head, not wanting to believe what I was hearing. Look, Brady, Digger pleaded as he came up to me. No one knows what happened. If you get rid of the drill and don't say anything, no one will ever know, and none of us will get in trouble. But Digger, it was wrong, man. I mean, Ben's dead. Suddenly, Digger grabbed the front of my shirt. You think telling the cops is going to change any of that? You think telling the truth brings the kid back? I knocked his hand off and pushed him away. No, Digger came back at me so angrily he practically spit in my face. Just makes it worse, because then they'll accuse us of murder. Murder? I repeated in disbelief. I stared at him. Yeah, murder. They'll send us all to reform school. JT, me, and you too, he railed, thumping me on the chest with his finger. Because don't you forget, Brady, it was your frickin' idea in the first place.